Good morning, boys and girls. Well, today I have a story for you. In fact, it is a story that it takes a lot of energy to read. And do you know, most of the time when I read this story in school, do you know what the teachers do? They stand and they giggle and they giggle and they giggle at me. But I think you'll find out why as we read the story. Today's story is all about Mr. Chatterbox. Let's see. Mr. Chatterbox was one of those people who could not stop talking. We've a couple of those in our class, don't we? Mm-hmm. He used to talk to anybody and everybody about anything and everything. And he would go on and 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 on. He never stopped talking. And when he didn't have anyone else to talk to, he just talked to himself. "Oh, good morning, Mr. Chatterbox," he would say to himself. "Good morning to you too." He used to reply to himself. "Nice day, isn't it? Oh, yes, it's a great time of the year." And so on and so forth. On and on and on. He lived in a box-shaped house. Chatterbox Cottage. We've seen that before. Now, one morning, the postman arrived with a letter for him. "Morning, Mr. Chatterbox," said the postman. "Ah, good morning to you, Mr. Postman," said Mr. Chatterbox. Although, as I was saying to myself only yesterday, or was it the day before, I forget, however, it's not quite as good a morning, in my opinion, although I might be wrong. I am very often, as it was the other day, Monday I think it was, or perhaps it was Tuesday, but never mind, because it is quite a good morning, don't you agree? Yes, of course you do, because that's what you said to me in the first place. And he went on and on and on all morning, and the postman was late delivering all the rest of his letters. That afternoon, Mr. Chatterbox went into the hat shop in the village. "Oh, hello, Mr. Bowler," he said to the man who owned the hat shop. "Do you think if it's possible that I could buy, if it's not too expensive, and I'm sure it won't be, a new hat, because would you believe it? Yes, of course you would, but anyway, as I was saying, my present hat, the one on my head, as you can see, it's getting, how could I put it, a little old, because I've had it for, let me see, it must be 10 years. No, I tell a lie, it can't be that long, or can it? Oh yes, it could be, but on the other hand..." And he went on and on and on all afternoon and half the night, long after poor Mr. Bowler should have shut up the shop and gone home for his tea. Eventually, when Mr. Bowler managed a word in edgeways, he promised to order a new hat for Mr. Chatterbox. Then he pushed Mr. Chatterbox out of his house, out of his shop even, still talking of course, and went home for his supper, which was cold, because of course Mrs. Bowler had cooked it hours ago. And while he ate, he thought and thought. Exactly 1 week later, a new hat arrived for Mr. Chatterbox in a smart red hat box. The postman delivered it to Mr. Bowler's shop. "Oh, at last," he said. "I think this hat is going to be the answer to the problem of Mr. Chatterbox." "Oh, I wish it could be. But how?" "Because," said Mr. Bowler, "this is a magic hat." "Oh," said the postman, who didn't quite understand but was very excited. That same afternoon, Mr. Bowler took the new hat round to Chatterbox Cottage. Oh, goody, said Mr. Chatterbox, seizing the hat box and opening it. It's my new hat, my lovely new hat. I can't wait for it to arrive. In fact, I got up early this morning because aren't I silly? I just knew. I don't know how, but I knew. I just knew that today would be the day, and I knew that it is, and here is my hat, and isn't it lovely? And I can't wait to try it, and I hope it suits me. Do you think it will? Yes, of course you do. And why don't you try it on? Said Mr. Bowler. Try it on, of course I must try it on, and how silly of me to stand here chattering when I haven't even tried it on. And yes, I will absolutely try it on straight away, because as I said, it's silly to just talk about trying it on and not actually try it on. And he took the hat out and put it on. Oh, it was a beautiful hat. I really must say that this is the hat. It really is. That it is the greatest hat, the most best hat I have ever seen in my life. And furthermore, I have seen some hats. But while he was talking, a very strange thing was happening. The more words that came out of Mr. Chatterbox's mouth, the larger his hat became. The more he talked, the more the hat grew and grew and grew. Mr. Chatterbox just kept talking and the hat kept growing. I can't see anything, he said. 1 minute I was standing here looking at my new hat in the mirror, and all of a sudden, without any warning, taking me unawares just like that. And the hat grew right down to his feet. And Mr. Chatterbox stopped talking. As soon as he stopped talking, the hat grew smaller and smaller until it was the same size it had been when he tried it on. Mr. Bowler had gone when Mr. Chatterbox couldn't see him, and now he was walking back to his shop with a big smile on his face. My special magic hat really works, he chuckled. The following day, Mr. Chatterbox was out for a walk when he met the postman in the village. "Hello, postman," he said. "I say, do you like my new hat? I've never had such a fine hat. I'm sure that you have never had such a hat. What a hat! Your hat is nice, but my hat is even..." And you know what happened? The hat grew and grew and grew the more Mr. Chatterbox talked. "Now I know what he meant by a magic hat," said the postman, and he went on his way, leaving poor Mr. Chatterbox speechless. He thought, thinking, not talking, thinking. And do you know something? The hat has taught Mr. Chatterbox a lesson. This day, he doesn't talk half as much as he used to, or even a quarter of as much. And you know the reason for that, don't you? Of course you do. But keep it under your hat. Oh my goodness. I know that I love this story because sometimes I can be a Mr. Chatterbox, and I love a hat that just grew and grew and grew and covered me up. I hope that you have enjoyed our Mr. Man stories and our Little Miss stories and all of our other stories. And hopefully I will get into school again very soon so that I can bring you some more stories, because all my stories are gone. That is it. That's all my Mr. Men stories. That was the last one. So I think that Miss Spence has some in her room, and I'm going to go and have a wee look. But don't tell her. Okay. I'll see you soon. Bye.